and welcome to the Recruiting Masters podcast brought to you by the CFC Insider. I'm Katie Burt here with Clint Uttley. Clint, there was quite a celebration this past week with a big Super Bowl win for KC. It's never been won. It's the first time in 50 years, I believe. First for Andy Reid. I'm a huge Patrick Mahomes fan.
You are now, officially, now that he's been a league MVP and a Super Bowl champion, a Patrick Mahomes fan.
I know, I jumped on that bandwagon. I've been floundering since Peyton Manning retired. I haven't been able to settle on any one thing, and this may be my team, my new team.
You realize Peyton Manning retired a long time ago,
That's
right?
how much I've been floundering. I haven't found anyone to replace him.
There you go. So yeah, it was a big win. 50 years?
I think they said, 50 years, yeah.
50 years, and for that coach, I think
awesome.
he was the winningest coach without one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome for that guy. So yeah.
But there was also special celebration closer to home with one of their players, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. Laurent is a Canadian from Montreal who was also a player while you were a coach at McGill University. What were your thoughts when you saw him when he won and he's hosting that trophy above his head and giving the interviews? And how did you feel for him?
Oh, good. I mean, it's always good to see one of your former players win something like that. You know, so it's honestly, it's probably been like 5 years since I've spoken with Laurent, but there's really nothing that he could do that would really surprise me after getting to see him operate in person for the 2 years as an assistant and another 2 years as a head coach. Nothing he really does surprises me. That's what kind of person he is.
So before we get started, well, truly into the meat and potatoes of this podcast, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, @ChatFootball, Instagram, CFC_football, and YouTube. And don't forget to sign up for your exclusive CFC Insider membership today of either silver, gold, or platinum. Just hit the subscribe button on CanadaFootballChat.com for access to our CFC player rankings, all of our analysis, and other daily football recruiting news across Canada. So as we were saying, you obviously coached at McGill. I spent time there also for 4 years. I was the head strength coach there. Can you summarize your time there? What were your roles, records, that type of thing?
I went there as basically an assistant head coach and a defensive coordinator. During some pretty lean years. I went there solely because Coach Wolf was there. Coach Wolf had recruited me and coached me when I was in university at Acadia.
That would be Sonny Wolf.
So that's kind of the reason I went there. The roles have changed, not a lot over the years, but they changed from like defensive coordinator, assistant head coach to there was a point where it was like head coach in waiting, assistant head coach, and then obviously my last 3 years there I was the head coach. So up until a spectacular resignation under protest, which if you're really interested you could look it up online and you can see, because I'm not going to go into that complete story, but yeah. So it was a good run. It was a 7-year run. It's a tough place to coach, a tough place to win, but you get to meet some of the best young student athletes in all of Canada, that's for sure, and the things they go on to accomplish. As we are talking about Laurent here today, some of those things are just awesome.
And I mean, being McGill is a storied program. Like that, sitting in that chair, that's a special place.
Yeah, I mean, being the head coach there, Ron is there right now. Ron was, I brought him in as a defensive coordinator.
Ron Hilaire.
Yeah. So, and I made it pretty clear when I brought him in there that I was going to be about another year and then I had to get out. Because the brand is awesome, the brand that McGill carries, one of the top ones in all of North America for sure. But it can be really tough to win a lot of games there. So I think you got a shelf life there. And when I hit 7 years, I would say I was at my shelf life.
So take us back to the beginning. How did you and I believe Sonny Wolf first recruited him from the start? Do you recall what Cégep he went to, or any other conversations when you were first learning about Laurent, getting to know him?
When I first got there, Coach Wolf was actively recruiting him. He went to Andre Grissett, which for those of you who don't know is kind of, I'm not sure best way to verbalize it. is probably one of the top CGIPs. CGIP is like
It's a Division One CGIP.
it is now. It's got one of the premier CGIP football programs now. It didn't when Laurent went there. So yeah, and I think it's a private CGIP, and its academics are hugely important at that CGIP. So not that they're not important at every CGIP, but they have a track record of having a really strong academic program there. So yeah, he went to Grissett. He was a defensive end, defensive lineman when he came out. Sonny Wolf was the one who actively recruited him to McGill. I do know that he was looking at the powerhouse schools in Quebec, i.e. Laval, Montreal at that point. So I do know that we got lucky in the sense that I'm pretty sure, if I remember the story right, and not to make Laurent look bad, which would be impossible now, but I'm pretty sure he missed an academic appointment or something like that happened, and he ended up coming to McGill kind of under that pretense. So now, like, I'll be...
No, that worked out pretty well.
Well, there's that part, but falling back on a McGill med school opportunity.
That's okay too.
Yeah, that just kind of speaks to his trajectory in life. So, and I'll use that word a lot as we talk about him today, because he was always trending up, even when I first met him. So yeah, he went to Grissett. He was a D lineman, and Coach Wolf recruited him. So
put your scout hat on here, Clint. I know you are the head of our CanadaFootballChat.com's scouting bureau. You, from the many years that you've been in football, over 20, recruiting and having an eye for talent is something that it comes easily to you. And I mean, we obviously rely on your opinion with that. So give us your Mike Mayock, Cole's notes of Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, a.k.a. Larry.
Yeah, okay. You mean Mike Clint talk? Anyways, but I would... Obviously, if you were just to pull up Laurent's pro day numbers, he probably should have been drafted higher than what he was. So I think he went in the 6th round. Yeah. But he had... his test scores were higher than almost all, not quite all, the offensive linemen who actually did the NFL Combine that year. So, I mean, he's big and he's strong. He's got that, if you can call it that, he's got that that kind of wiry strength. Obviously, it's now evolved into a 300-plus pounder. But if you ever meet Laurent, he's big and he's long. He's really athletic and really close area quickness, but he is a monster. And his lower half is massive. His arms are long, and he may have the biggest, strongest set of hands I have ever. There's no way he's ever going to be a surgeon, and hopefully that's not a shot at him. But I don't know, I couldn't imagine him reaching at me to do something, because his hands are huge. So, but yeah. There's two athletes in my entire, say, 20 plus years of youth sports and just coaching football in general, where when I saw them in pads, I was always like, wow, that's what it should look like. There's him and Shea Emery.
Oh, yeah.
Shea was he was like that too. And I know Shea went on to have 10 years or close to that in the CFL, and was a legitimate starter. I know Laurent's gone on to be a starter in the NFL, which is a whole other stratosphere, monster, but yeah. You could just tell from the beginning. He has it too. So I mean, aside from all the physical traits, Laurent also has a certain confidence about him, and he also has a skill of interacting with people and communicating. So he has that nailed down too. So.
And talking about his interaction with people, I remember I had come with you and a few of the other coaches on a few occasions to scout, look at players, that type of thing. And the first time I ever met him was at one of those games. He was there watching his elementary.
Oh, a CGIP game, I know.
Yeah. And you had introduced me to him, and it's funny how you never really think about where these players are going to go when you first meet them. I mean, I always refer to them as kids. So, Larry, you're a kid, even though you're not. And outside of his athletic attributes, when I met him, he was super quiet. But what really struck me is that he always looked you in the eye when he was talking, and he was super respectful.
Yeah, you could tell he was listening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, during my time at McGill, I had, you have a handful of meetings with all of your players. And you get to meet the parents of your players as well at various points through a season or whatever. And you can see where he got it from. If you, like, having an opportunity to meet with his mom and dad on more than one occasion, after a game, or sitting down with them one day and we spoke of Laurent's future in football. But, like, you can see where he got it from. They're listening, they're engaging. They're people, like, they actually, yeah, they have the it, especially his dad. I mean, his dad kind of had an aura even the first time I met him. It's like, yeah, that's dad, and dad means business.
Yeah.
So you could tell that.
So going a bit further with that, how did you know he was special?
Well, for me, it's always about goal setting, and maybe I'm not the best example, but like for him, it was like he did well enough in school that he got into his program. He took off in his program, and you know what? There's a lot of times where he didn't have time to do everything, but he found time, and like you were just like impressed by his time management skills. And then you could look at him, and you could see that he could digest an entire game plan in a few hours, maybe take 1 or 2 reps, and he was good. So, a lot of those people don't understand professional athletes in whatever league they're in. They don't understand how physically gifted they are, but they also don't understand how like their IQ is enormous.
They're very intelligent, yeah.
They're really intelligent. I mean, maybe they're not intelligent like academic intelligent, which Laurent is, obviously, he's a doctor. But like their IQ is through the roof, and he's both obviously book smart, but he also has a huge football IQ. So when you put the talent with the IQ, and then you put it with like a tremendous work ethic and just like time management skills and like people skills, like I said,
I got like everything.
Well, it's like everything, but if you think about it, like honestly, here's my thought process. So I was watching the Super Bowl, and you see Pat Mahomes take him down, and you watch the San Francisco 49ers, who play a traditional blend of football with great defense and run the ball, give up 21 points with 7 minutes left.
Fourth quarter collapse.
I may not have been cheering for the Chiefs, just so everybody knows. But we do live on the West Coast. But yeah, I was watching that, and I watched the Super Bowl goes through, and you see that Laurent has won a Lombardi trophy. And honestly, the first thing that went into my head was like, I wonder what his next goal is. And like that's kind of where I was at, because I mean, he's going to be a practicing physician one day. And from everything I've heard, not that I poke around a lot, he's quite heavily into his charities and such.
Yeah.
So, and he is the type of person who's going to not just give back, but like give back. So, I mean, I was like, oh, wow, he just climbed another mountain. So I wonder what his next goal is. And I would be like, who knows if I'll ever get a chance to speak directly with him. It seems the last 2 years we've maybe had some conversing through Farhan Lalji when Farhan covers Chiefs games, but that's about it. But I would be super curious to see what his next goal is, because that's exactly what I thought of as soon as he won that.
So let's stray away from that a little bit, and let's just talk some football. So I'm going to ask you a few questions here. When did you know that, or Sonny Wolf, however it came about, switching him from D-line to O-line would be a better position for him? What made you make that decision, and what did the other coaches, both on the D and the O, think of that decision?
I know his first year he was with me on defense, so he was a part-time starter, played 3 tech. He played most of the game. Essentially, for me, because he would only make it to practice when academics would allow, and he tried. You could tell he tried, but like. There's no way you can start him when he's not there for the entire practice week. You can't do that. So early on in his career, we would accommodate his academics like we do with other people at McGill. You'd have to do that. So he was a part-time starter at 3 tech. So he was playing 3, and old tough guy Ben Thompson was the 1 tech.
Benny.
Yeah. And John Bauer. So we went into the off season. And at McGill, we were like, McGill is an incredibly hard place to recruit student athletes, because you need like 90% to get into arts. It used to be that way. So we were short on linemen. So I think that offseason, we ended up moving 1 or 2 linemen, defensive linemen, which, I mean, being the defensive coordinator, you're like, oh my goodness, you're going to take my best young D lineman. But at the same time, you're looking at the overall makeup of a football team, and you're like, well, if we can't protect the quarterback, we're dead anyways. Yeah, because like we don't have enough beef up front to run the ball. So at that point, we had Charles Sinnott and Matt Connell, and you're just like, we're just going to let Connell throw the ball like 800 times. So we better protect him.
And CA better catch the ball.
Yeah, CA, or it may have been JC Collins for sure, but whatever who the quarterback is, we're like, we can hardly run the ball. So we're going to have to be able to like throw the ball. So we moved some of our, what we thought was our best linemen over. And I remember in that second year, I'm pretty sure Laurent played, he got converted. And I'm not sure how we got to that end in the coaching staff. I do remember having conversations with the defensive linemen and explaining to them it's in their best interest to do that, not just for the team, but like at that point you're thinking, oh, maybe Laurent would be interested in playing in the CFL. So back then, the Montreal Alouettes had 5 Canadian linemen, Canadian offensive linemen, and 1 Canadian defensive lineman. So you sell it that way. And we moved them over. And it obviously was Coach Wolf's decision at that point because he was the head coach. You know, so yeah, Laurent moved over and he played O, and he played some D that year too. Like we would package him a little bit and get him in on short yards and so on and so forth. So.
And who are his like I know, I mean, you're the DC, you're more of an overall in tune with all of the players, but Matthew Kiviget and Herb
that was more when he moved to offense.
Those were his position coaches. So what?
Yeah, when he moved to offense, when he moved to offensive line, I think I can't completely remember. I think it was Kiviget first, which Matt had a tremendous amount in common with Laurent. So you know they're both like call Kiviget an academic because I think he's an engineer. Pretty sure he is or was or is. And I know they kind of had a really tight relationship, and they're both from the province of Quebec. They're both francophone. You know, they're both literally the same size. Kiviget has a big personality. So I mean, and I honestly think Matt probably taught him a fair amount about being like an offensive lineman, but I think Kiviget mentored him above and beyond that as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, until Laurent hits a certain point. You know, so that was Matt Kiviget had him for 1, maybe 2 years. And then I know Irv Damon, who's probably my favorite offensive line coach in U Sports football.
Love Irv.
Yeah. So like Irv is awesome. I mean, he would arguably be he's one of the better line coaches in the country.
He's like a mastermind. He's like the mad scientist.
A lot of those really good offensive line coaches they are that way, you know? They're it's the game inside the game. I always use the analogy, they're coaching football like people play golf. So it's like, it's the biomechanics of it. It's the length of a step. It's like the complete inner workings of the game, broken down to the most minute detail. And they're all detail oriented, and they all have their own way of doing things. And they're their own little creature. Not to sound, well, I'm not going to say it, but they're their own dude, and they do it their own way, and that's the way they are, and that's what makes them as good at their job as they actually are.
So the O-line coaches must have been ecstatic when LDT was moving over to their side of the ball.
Yeah, there was excitement, but it was also
Did he play both ways at one point?
In his second year, he a little bit, not like full time both ways. Okay. We may have tried it for a week or two, and we're going to destroy him. But so like we just he moved, and then you could tell right away it was going to be a solid move. The coaches liked it. I think there was a point, maybe I'm not sure if Coach Binden was part of that equation at one point too. But they were into it, and they were like, yeah, he's going to be good. He's going to be not bad, and you could see it right away because Coach Wolf, I think he mentioned in an article earlier. When you get an offensive lineman, you can teach him how to be an O lineman, but he still uses that defensive lineman mentality. That's when you know it's going to work out well.
So I remember having conversations with Jerome Favriel. He was the SAQ coach that was assigned specifically for the football team, one of the coaches that I managed for the whole athletic department. So he worked directly with the team as their, like I said, strength and agility and quickness type
strength and conditioning
strength
coach.
and conditioning. He didn't do so much about the weight room stuff, but I remember talking to Fabriel and us just in passing conversations about how we were going to manage, certain players on different teams, and Larry was one of them. Just because he had minimal time there and how to be the most effective and that type of thing. But you're no stranger to large groups of people. I mean, your experience as a captain in the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as being now this year being the head coach of the Hayaks. But we've been in DC since you moved out here with the high school coaching scene, to producing and running the CFC prospect game tryouts and showcase selection camps, games. Like, you're used to running large groups of people, and managing those personalities. So how did you negotiate with the other coaches, the team in general, the obvious special arrangements that you or Sonny Wolf had set up in order for Laurent to pursue both passions, football and his medical studies? And what did that entail? And also, what sort of dynamic did that produce on your team?
Well, it's all about that, managing personalities. I learned when I was a younger coach at Acadia University, home of the Axemen. I used to be like, there's one broad stroke, everybody gets treated the same way, that's just the way it's going to be. And then I had a player at Acadia, Eric Nielsen.
Yeah.
Eric was like a 4-time All-Canadian.
He was so fast.
He was so good. So there was I changed my tune with Eric as he went through the end of his career, because when you get really good players, and I'm a coordinator, so I only take care of one side of the ball. But when you're an assistant head coach, sometimes you'll communicate with the entire team if the head coach asks you to. So it was like more along the lines of, I tell them in their first meeting, okay, so we're all on the same team, but you're all not playing by the same rules. So life is not fair. So however this falls into play, you just need to deal with it. And those guys who have shown that they can excel at a higher level or have proven themselves, both as all-conference, all-Canadian, whatever, well, they're going to get a little more chain or a little more leash than some of you other people. So you're just going to have to deal with it. And with Laurent, there wasn't a whole lot of that because he was such a good guy. And when he was around, he would kind of take the lead with meetings, bringing his dad's pastries and stuff into the meetings, organizing dinners. So at first there was a little bit of grumbling. And then as it became obvious that he was one of the better players in all of Canada, the grumblings kind of subsided. But yeah, did we have to give him his own practice schedule? Yes. Was there weeks where he did not show up at all and would come to the walkthrough and then completely dominate a very solid opponent? Yes, he did. Best case example of that is when we hired Pat Bois. He came in, Pat put in his spread, similar to, I'm not going to call it because I don't want to offend Pat, but Pat put in the spread, and we put an emphasis on running the ball and a lot of the zone read stuff and the RPOs and blah, blah, blah. And Laurent was doing a medical practicum, was out of town. Laurent did not get a single practice during training camp. He showed up for possibly one practice. He did one walkthrough. Wow. And then he got on the bus. He may have driven himself there, who knows. But anyways, he got on the bus and we went up and played the number one team in the country. And Laurent went against the number one defensive end in the country. And literally 36 hours after arriving at camp, Laurent completely dominated. Destroyed him. The number one prospect. And that was year 3. So that's the beginning of year 3. So that's Laurent had played a year and was whoa, he's going to be good. And then year 3 starts. And now his year 3, Laurent was a first team All-Canadian. And he should have won the Metris that year. But he was kind of just putting his name on the map. So yeah, so he showed up and he digested an entire playbook, an entire game plan with all new run plays and protections, and lined up in probably the most hostile atmosphere in Canada against the number one team, lined up against their best defensive player, and beat him like a drum. That's the best story I have about Laurent. And it's not just Laurent's the man now. Let's tell legendary stories. It's not like that. You could call Pat Bois and Pat Bois would probably tell it the same way. So.
So what would just to go a little bit further that, what would be your advice to other coaches on all levels that may find themselves kind of in the same situation where you're kind of...
It all comes down to the athlete. So it's like, I would say you need to try and find a manner where you give your athletes options, or you're creating options as opposed to taking options away. So in Laurent's case, say Sonny Wolf, when he was the head coach, or when I became the head coach, what if we looked at Laurent and said, no, you either make it to all the practices or you quit football? Seriously, what if we had done that? Like, okay, so Laurent doesn't play football. So Laurent is basically an emergency room doctor in Montreal now and doesn't win a Super Bowl. That would be so wrong, especially if they have the skill set to do so. So I would say not all athletes are the same, so you can't paint everything with the same color brush. And your goal as a coach is to create opportunities for athletes and not take them away. And if that means being flexible, it's just what it is. That's where you need to sit down with your team captains or your leadership council and say, look,
and manage it.
We have a freak, and he's going to make us a better football team, or she, whatever. So we need to give them a little more leash than we would give anybody else. And it's just going to be that way. And if you have an issue with that, talk to your position group and let's hash it out. But it's just the way it's going to be. Now, that could dramatically change if you make all those concessions for an athlete and it turns out to be Antonio Brown type stuff. Now it's just like shut it down, cut them, turn it off. Right. But in his case, just imagine like if Coach Wolf or myself had said, no, you got to make it to all the practices or you're out. That would just, that would have hurt football.
Yeah.
You know what? Because you just, Laurent has just become basically a legend in his own province. And he's going to inspire.
And an inspiration, yeah.
He's going to inspire an entire generation of young Canadians, more specifically, young Quebec football players.
Yeah.
And hopefully they pick up a Kansas City jersey and maybe hang their Montreal Canadian jersey on a really nice hanger in the closet for the next little while.
So being a student athlete is tough enough. Being one at McGill, we've already alluded to, it has immense pressure due to the academic standards, which other programs do. You know, you got your Queens and your all those types of things. How do you balance the academics and athletics for your team as a whole? And then Larry, within that philosophy, I know that you said that there were some times where you had to have a few conversations to keep him in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, there's one or two where he would come up and be extremely concerned. And then I know as we made our way through year 3, and he was first team All-Canadian. Now you got to understand is what's paralleling his journey through football at McGill is also his studies in medicine. So as year 1 becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 4, his studies in medicine become more and more and more intense. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming. So there was conversations. Not a lot, but there was a couple of conversations. I do remember one specifically where we sat down with his parents and we had to explain to his parents how good he was going to be. And it's like, and I'm not sure if Laurent was approaching it that way, but in my brain I was like, okay, so say he's the first pick in the CFL draft. I don't see him playing football because he's a doctor. Say he's so good that he gets an opportunity to play in the NFL. Now I see him continuing to play football because the salary is going to dramatically trump that of a doctor. So, but there was actually a conversation. I think it's the first time I sat down with Laurent's parents in my office, in an office setting, because you'll meet parents after a game and you'll talk to them briefly. But I remember sitting down and explaining to them, Laurent is at this point is very much going to be probably the first pick in the CFL draft. And it may even go further than that, which means he could make a tremendous amount of money. So we have to find a way to ride this out over the next year, because I think there was a point where he was considering, or he was really shaken up about possibly not playing football. Because as much as medicine is medicine and school is school, I think he's tremendously passionate about the game of football. Yeah,
and you saw that on Sunday.
Yeah, and he's an emotional guy too, right? He works hard and
you say he has a big personality.
Yeah, he has he has a big happy personality. Mm-hmm. And most times you'll you'll be hanging out with him. And I got to hang out with him when he was like McGill Laurent. So I don't even know what he'd be like now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but he was always, it was usually pretty positive. There was a smile, there was a handshake, always encouraging. So that's what I remember. So
let's talk about his pro day. I mean, I was there for that day. It was fantastic. It was, a little bit, how's the word? Not like, awe. I mean, there was every single CFL, NFL scouts were there.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. Some of his teammates were there. I think it was Max Dupuis, maybe it was Zach Lord who was like spotting him on the bench. Like it was really cool to see the whole, like a lot of the team was there also to support him in
and
that.
And the Donovan brothers were there.
Patrick and Pat and Mickey Donovan were there, and I mean those two are just awesome. So give us an idea of how that went, how it was set up, and what it was like to have that atmosphere and those scouts all up there to see him play.
Well, he played in the Shrine Bowl or the East West. I can't remember.
Yeah, he did play in the East West.
Whatever one. So, but I remember it started before that, and you started to get like random phone calls from NFL teams, and at that point you're like, oh, this is actually going to happen now. And then our season ends. Laurent gets first team All Canadian for a second year in a row, and he wins the JP Metris. So, and then the phone calls started to actually heat up and speed up, where the NFL teams were calling pretty consistently. Laurent actually left shortly thereafter and went to a pre-combine, pre-pro day training program. I don't know where he went down in the States, but he took off and did that. And then it literally, I think every single NFL team called and did their due diligence. I think at his pro day, I can't remember, but I think there was 19 NFL teams and all the CFL teams. So, and he put up better scores than most of the same offensive linemen in his draft class.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
So, and coming off his performance in the All-Star game, where he literally, I would say the game itself was frustrating because they kept putting him against the other Canadians.
Well, and you and Patty were down there.
Yeah, me and Pat Donovan were down there. So they kept putting him in the game, or they kept almost matching him up against the Canadian from Manitoba, which was like just dumb.
Bizarre.
And then, but like Laurent was catching eyes during the practices, where Laurent was like, he was stoning some like you'd see a kid line up across from Laurent from like Florida State, and you're like, oh. And then Laurent would whoop his ass, and then Laurent would almost pick a fight, and then Laurent would just kind of, he knows how to like push your buttons, but then like kind of step back and draw a penalty. Like he's that smart. So, and you'd see that. And then it went into the pro day. His numbers were better than most of the offensive line that year in the draft. I'm still convinced the only reason he went to the 6th round is because they didn't know what to think of U Sports football.
And Canadians?
Yeah, there's just that part of the equation.
Do you think that played into it?
Oh, I totally think that played into it. Because the whole time we were going through the process, I was like, he's going to be the next Marshall Yanda. He may not be like the mauler that guy is, but he's going to be a guard. And he's going to last a long time and have a long career and be a starter. I didn't know when he would be a starter. And it wasn't surprising that he kind of was a backup his first year. But I was just like, he's too physically gifted not to. And knowing him, he's going to set goals. And he has a strong track record of reaching his goals. So I was pumping his tires the whole time. Like I was like, he's going to go in the 2nd round. Look at his numbers. How can he not go in the 2nd round? And then every person I spoke to, I was like, he's going to be Marshall Yanda. He won't maul people like Marshall Yanda, but he's going to be like a complete same height, same size, super intelligent, has like a nasty demeanor to him. And that's kind of where I drew the comparison. But yeah, he should have gone sooner. Now, the time he put into getting ready to play obviously makes sense, because I think most guys in the NFL, not very many of them just dive into their first year starting and go.
Right. So speaking to the Canadians, I mean, there's a couple other Canadians you and I kind of talked about before getting ready for this podcast. I mean, we got Chuba Hubbard. You said there was a receiver. Like these Canadians, I mean, they've got these amazing numbers, but they're also not getting the...
Now they are. I think now they are, because it's starting to become more... Well, there's more the top end kids, Canadians, are going down to the NCAA schools. There's a lot more. You have to admit that.
There is.
I think there's a point where I think and now I'm not talking about the NFL now because that's a whole other stratosphere.
Right.
But I think there's a point where coaches, college coaches, need to understand that the athletes, there's a bunch of them up here that they just need to come up and get them from up here. Because there's a common misconception that you have to go to the States in order to get a scholarship. That's wrong now. I think you get a scholarship in Canada just the same right now. So, but there's Chubba Hubbard, there's Chase Claypool, there's Neville Gallimore. We had the guy from Baylor contact us a while ago and be like, hey, can you tell us who the next Chubba Hubbard and Neville Gallimore are? And we were like, yeah, okay. Because they grow on trees up here. But so I mean, Larry, good for Larry though. Like going back to your original question, I think there is a lack of respect at times. And I think they didn't know how to evaluate the competition he was going against. So snubbed, I don't know about snubbed because he did get drafted.
Yeah.
But if you were just to look at his numbers, yeah, should he have been in the 6th round? No, it should have been way sooner.
So as we kind of wind this down, as I said, during my time at McGill, I had the pleasure of undergoing 2 hip replacements within the 4 years that I was there. And I always remember Laurent, whenever I did have the chance to see him, asking me about my health and my progress and what stage of fake jointness I was in. And he was so sincere, and you could really tell he truly cared about the answer. And now that could probably be his love for orthopedics and surgery and all of that good stuff. But I always appreciated that, and I appreciated it because not many kids even remember someone's situation, never mind actually inquire about it. And so I thank him for that, because that stuck out to me, and that actually meant a lot, knowing that he was truly asking me how I was and what was going on, and being up there with Dr. Delaney in the therapy sport med office lots. So that's kind of a little bit of a side of the person that I knew. But were there any other kind of more quirky things about Larry that you can tell us about, or funny situations, nicknames, that type of thing, just before we wrap up?
No. You know what? Probably my most embarrassing moment with Laurent and quirky is he was famous for bringing his dad. His dad owns, I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2, cafe/pastry shops, which they're really good because I've had them a bunch when I was there. But the first time I was in Montreal, and Laurent was there, and he brought in a whole bunch of whatever from his dad's pastry shop / cafe, and I had never tried an almond croissant before. And straight out of Western Canada, I took a bite, and then I was like, oh man, that's terrible. And then
he did it.
Oh yeah, I remember. I don't know if he would remember, but Laurent looked at dead in the eye and was like, "Oh, my dad made that."
Oh jeez.
Yeah, I was just excuse my language. I was like, "Who's the jackass right now?" That would be me. So here I am. Laurent's gone out of his way. He probably had to go do football and then go do all his homework. And then I'm pretty sure his dad made him work in the bakery or whatever. I'm pretty sure he made him work in the bakery on a consistent weekly basis. So here he is. He's rushing in to get to a film session. He's brought breakfast essentially for all of his offensive,
Clint.
His lineman mates. I go up there and completely put my foot in my mouth, and I was just so after that I was just I never. And then you get to meet his dad and you see how awesome his family is. You're just that still stuck out in my head. And Laurent being incredibly intelligent, he's probably held on to that. He was who's the jackass from Western Canada? So, but anyways.
And he used to have some funny nicknames. I mean, we've all called him Larry.
Dr. Kill.
Dr. Kill.
Yeah.
That's probably...
Yep. That was the big one. So, I mean, he was there during my 2 into my 3rd year, but the 2 years, my first 2 years as a head coach, Larry was a big part of that turnaround. Because I know he struggled a lot during his first 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we actually had a playoff game, and then his last year we just missed the playoffs. And that last year, I know that Laurent was banged up, and it kind of demonstrated us to like how tough he was.
Mm-hmm.
There was some minor things, but but no, that's my story about Laurent. I always remember that too, because you're just like, wow. Because I don't really put my foot in my mouth that often. That was one of those times where it was just like, what is that? My dad made that. Oh, good.
So let's just wrap this up. Any closing thoughts or any, advice or things that you can give to other coaches or teammates or whatever, to Laurent, anything that you want to just close off with?
No, just sometimes you're going to run into athletes who are going to be an academic, and you have to accommodate that. Sometimes they're going to be the complete package. You have to accommodate that. But I mean, think of where the game would be if like myself or Coach Wolf were completely rigid. Well, then there would be no Super Bowl. He would not be playing football most likely. Who knows?
Possibly.
He may have transferred and gone and played anywhere else. But I think there was a point where his family wanted him to focus on his medical studies. So I'm just happy that he's achieved that. And you know what? There's not too many Canadians who are going to have a 10-year career in the NFL. But for me, honestly, my closing statement would be, I wonder what his next goal is. That's all I would be curious about.
Well, and you made a thing out on Twitter. You said that he's gonna, like, his accomplishment on the football field is absolutely tremendous, but you're more curious, like you said, to see that the accomplishment or the great things that he's gonna do off of the football field.
Yeah, because there's a lot of his teammates, and I'm not going to ramble off all their names, but they're big time CEOs now, and there are other doctors, and there's lawyers, and there's sports agents, and there's from that class. I mean, man, we didn't win enough football games, but there is some tremendous human beings
some great kids
who have already did some tremendous things early on in their life.
Yeah.
So I mean, people. And I'm going to be completely transparent. I haven't talked to Laurent for close to 5 years, but people will ask, oh, you coached that guy. I'm just be like, hey, he was an awesome guy. And then I've had people the last day or two oh, the guy who won the Super Bowl. And you're just like, you know what? I wonder what's next. Because for him, it's I was joking around this morning when I spoke with you, and I was like, well, if he builds his own hospital, and then he builds his own hospital and then cures cancer and then becomes the Prime Minister of Canada, then I'll be impressed. So I said that this morning. Yeah, so I was like, build your own hospital, cure a disease, and then become the Prime Minister. And because that's there's not too often you get to be around somebody like that. You're not, at least not. So, and the best part about him is I don't think he has, or his parents have drilled it into him, he's ever let any of that get to his head.
Yeah, it's pretty grounded.
Which is, you don't run into a lot of people like that. So kudos to him.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're super excited and happy for him and the team and really looking forward to, now
I can't believe you jumped on the bandwagon.
My new team, so keep it going. I just love Patrick Mahoney.
Patrick Mahoney.
I
found out today.
I need to get a hat.
Darnell Sikorsky, who's one of the coaches that I now coach high school football with, he was pretty pumped today because I had no idea that he was a lifelong Kansas City fan.
Oh, is he for real?
Yeah. So he was the kids were high-fiving him today and telling him congratulations. And he was talking about Priest Holmes, who's a running back from the 90s. And I was just like, wow, that's a long time ago. So
that's awesome. So that's it for us today. We're going to be back on schedule. We're going to be talking about summarizing all of the first round tryouts and showcases across Canada. We did complete our last one in Winnipeg this past weekend. I'm going to do a little brief debrief on some of the players there that we've heard performed really well, and then just kind of an overview and a summary of what's happened, and then telling what's coming up next. On CanadaFootballChat.com right now is our announcement article, so please go check that out and you can see when those invitations are going to be going out. We've also just launched a QB camp as well as a specialist camp, so those registration pages are up, so you can take a look at that. if that's something that you are interested in, we would love you to be a part of that. And then, we're
middle of February. We're gonna have all the second round
invitations, and right now the Scouting Bureau is working hard. They're right in the thick of it, getting those invitations ready and evaluating and taking a look at all the combine scores and talking about the indies and the one-on-one skills and drills and all that good stuff. So we're really working hard to do that, to get those out to you as soon as we can. And then the selection camps happen in March. So this time is going by fast.
Yeah. It's a fast time of the year for us. From here through to the end of March. Because there's so much going on. And then, what is tomorrow, signing day?
Tomorrow is the NCAA signing day, so we'll have coverage on that. And then Thursday is the next edition of the CFC 200 2021 list is going to be dropped. And again, we've been in the thick of that whole shebang. We evaluated 3 or 4 times the amount of players this past, combine camp testing. And so that list has actually dramatically changed.
Yep, dramatically changed. I know there's some positions who we've kind of are completely reevaluating, but no, it'll be out. And then just 2 other side notes is, to all those schools that have been blowing all that smoke about kids
and offers,
you better hope they sign, or we're going to make note of that. And then another thing, I just want to end off with my beloved Hayaks. Congratulations to Austin Galbraith and Grayson for going to York. They liked their visit, so they committed there. And then congratulations to AJ and Bertie on their commitment to Queens. So it's a good job. Oh, and Owen, congratulations on heading to UBC.
So that's it for us. Be sure to follow us, like I said, on Facebook, Twitter @ChatFootball, Instagram CFC_football, and YouTube. And don't forget to purchase your exclusive CFC Insider membership today for access to our CFC player rankings that we were just talking about, which you can find on CanadaFootballChat.com under the rankings tab. All of the good daily analysis. So we spoke about Sonny Wolf. He's one of our contributors. He puts out fantastic articles on our site quite regularly, actually. And we just released an article of Larry from Sonny as well that gives some more insight to Sonny's time with Laurent. So check that out. That's a really cool article. And then just the regular daily recruiting news and the profiles that we put out on these kids across Canada. It's so cool to see them. We get to see them from like as early as grade 7, even with our Fox 40 Prospect Challenge, all the way up until U Sport or NCAA or CFL and NFL. It really is a cool thing for us at CFC to watch these kids progress through their football career. And like we said, Laurent is an amazing, awesome inspiration to all of those kids and to us in general. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one, everyone.